So how do you overcome the fear of rejection? Is it like picking a spider up if you're scared of spiders?
No, it's you need to...
The telephone assassin. Anthony Stears has spent over 25 years mastering the phone. He's made millions of dials, trained sales teams across the world, and built a reputation for transforming how people sell without sounding salesy.
Most people are a little bit too salesy. If you're getting two no's on the trot, then it's probably because you're either phoning the wrong people or you're taking the wrong approach. I don't care if you've dialed 100 times in a day. What I care about is...
What are some of the common mistakes that sales people make on the phone that kill deals?
Whether you call it telesales, telemarketing, or business development, Anthony teaches you how to build trust, open conversations, and close more deals. So if your sales team fears the phone or your follow-ups are falling flat, this episode is the one that you've been waiting for. Let's do this.
That's the thing you don't want to answer. When you meet a prospect, they usually have two main questions. How much is it? And how quickly can I have it?
ActionCOACH, the help you need to grow your business. Anthony, so many people fear the phone. Mm-hmm. Why?
I think it's because they have a negative association with receiving horrible cold calls. That tends to be it. I think most of us have received a terrible cold call before. But you also have another fear that seems to creep in, used to be from the older generations, but it's starting to come back with the younger generations, that they hear a phone ring and their heart starts to pump because they just assume it's bad news. And back in the day when we used to only have one house phone in our properties and you all used to have to go and stand in the hallway and everybody could hear what you were saying, I've met some more mature people who kind of have this negative thing of when somebody phones, it's probably bad news. So, that seems to be one of the things that scares people
But
off.
when you phone, it's good news.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so look, let's not beat around the bush. In a world of digital marketing, mm-hmm. does telesales and telemarketing and still exist?
Definitely still works. Back in the day, marketing, people didn't really know which part of their marketing budget was working because a lot of it was just advertising. Yeah. Whereas now, a lot of it's digital marketing that's all very trackable.
You would think, by the way, if you're comparing a low light on one thing to a highlight on another thing, it's not always as visible and transparent, and some of the listeners will back me up on that comment. So even though it should be,
yes,
all trackable, it's...
Yes, not everybody tracks it like they used to. I suppose the thing that's really changed is in this new digital world, we can now do a lot more research before we phone. So I can find out a lot about you before I bother to reach out.
Do you do that?
Yeah.
Because, if I go back even 5 years, I mean... In telesales, probably don't overlook. Just pick the phone up. That was an avoidance tactic.
Yes.
So
that was more the numbers game, and you were probably told each no is one step closer to your next yes. Right.
Yeah. Is it still true?
Well, that phrase still gets used, but I don't think it should anymore. It used to get used to try and make you thick-skinned, so that if somebody was rude to you or hung up on you, you didn't sit and cry in the corner. If I'm honest with you, I would say that. If you're getting two no's on the trot, then it's probably because you're either phoning the wrong people and they don't have a need for your services, in which case you need to sort out your profile, which is kind of sometimes the case. Or if... I'm sort of losing my trail a bit here.
Two no's, if you get two no's.
Yeah, you get two no's on the trot. You're either phoning the wrong people or you're taking the wrong approach. And that's usually what is happening, is most people are... a little bit too salesy and they're taking a very harsh approach. So the analogy that I often give people to think about when they're reaching out, being proactive, and whether that's a cold call to somebody or if you're trying to upserve an existing customer, kind of works the same way. The philosophy I tend to get people to think about is it needs to feel like you're dropping off a pizza menu as opposed to feeling like they're knocking on your door and trying to take an order. Because... don't get me wrong, if the pizza companies out there went out on a Friday and Saturday night and they were door knocking but only houses blaring music, the likelihood is they'd probably sell a few pizzas. It's not a bad strategy, right? Yeah. But go out on a Tuesday morning at 10:30, most people are going to slam the door in your face. They're going to think it's very rude and presumptuous. They're not ready for it. They're not hungry right now. And that's the bit that I end up helping a lot of telesales people or salespeople slow down a little bit. Okay, when you introduce yourself, typically if I was reaching out to you, I'll tell you what it is I do, but then usually I'll instantly follow it up with, but I'm guessing you're probably not looking for that right now. Okay, that's the most common objection you ever get when you're phoning people, is we're not looking for that right now. Yeah. Whereas if you put it on the table, you kind of make it, well, you make it safe to talk about. And what you typically find is most people will confirm that you're correct and then justify it. So they'll say something like, oh, you're right, Anthony, we're not looking at training right now because we have a program that runs till the end of the year, or because we're recruiting, or we don't have budget yet. So they'll start to give me an indication of when they might be hungry for my services.
Let's progress to that. Let's go one step at a time here. You've mentioned 4 things I want to mention. Fear of rejection.
Yes.
Still exists.
Still exists, absolutely.
Is it still the biggest fear in sales?
It's the biggest hurdle that stops me from picking up the phone to start with, but once they get going, it's not really an issue anymore.
So how do you overcome the fear of rejection? Is it like picking a spider up if you're scared of spiders?
No, it's you need to wrap it in great manners and customer service and stop acting like a salesperson.
Starting your own business was an exciting time, wasn't it? The good days you had, and the bad. You knew you'd have to work hard, but you did it for your future. Lately, though, you're missing out on the important things in life. Time seems to be slipping by. So make the change. Claim back your work-life balance and grow your business today. Visit actioncoach.co.uk.
So which is your salesy part?
Which is a salesy part. So, for example,
just a second. Wrap it in manners.
Wrap it in good manners and great customer service. It shouldn't feel like a sales call. It should feel like a proactive expert is doing a customer service call.
As you're speaking there, you're speaking up. Your body language is changing. The tonality is probably energy level 4, and there's a warmth to your tone as you're speaking there. Yeah. So genuinely, you believe in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the biggest technique that tends to stop people worrying about that fear of rejection is normally people, if you phone up and you rattle off a bit of a pitch, a lot of people will hang up on you. Some people will fob you off and ask you for an email, and some people will just be rude and say, we're not looking for that. And that's kind of the end of it. When you're reaching out to somebody, the fear is that they don't want to talk to you. That tends to be the rejection, is they don't want to talk to me right now. So my golden rule that I do at the beginning of all conversations, it's called PTS. It's about getting permission to speak. Okay, and that is crucial. So the way I would do that with you, for example, is I would, if I knew you were the person I needed to speak to and you picked up the phone, I'd be saying, good afternoon, James. Look, my name's Anthony Stears. I was just hoping to chat to you for a couple of minutes, but I'm guessing I probably called you at a bad time. Is there a better time to call you back? Okay.
And then shut up.
And then shut up. Yes, because what most salespeople will do there is they're thinking, well, why would you do that? You've made it so easy for them to get out of this call. But what it actually does is there's some reverse psychology there that they think, well, you've made it so easy for me to get out of this call. You're probably not in sales. Or if you are in sales, you're not very good at it. So what you tend to find is it's quite disarming because people think, well, I don't think this is a sales call. And then usually they... In their mind, within half a second, they'll go, he made that easy. I don't think he's a sales call. He's only asked for 2 minutes. And he didn't mention his company, so I wonder what it's about. All of a sudden, I've created intrigue with those 3 friendly points. And what most people will tend to do is they'll go, well, look, there's never a good time to catch me. So I'll go on then. I've got 2 minutes now. What's the call about? And that's what you want. You want somebody to lean in. You want to know that they're listening.
We're going to get to that in a second as well. But, just what you just said there was it was confidence and warmth at the same time.
Yeah.
It was clearly, I don't know your scripts, but it was clearly something that you've said, I don't know, 1,000 times, 10,000 times,
probably more than that.
Times.
Probably more than that.
Out of interest, how many years have you been dedicating your life to getting on the phone?
Ever since I left school. So I was on the phone from my very first job, but I've been teaching and training it for about 12 years now.
Teaching and training it for 12 years. And before that, you were doing, 15 years of
making calls? Yeah, absolutely.
How many calls do you think you've actually made in that time? Have you ever quantified it?
I would hate to imagine how many dials I will have done over that time.
Is it millions?
Probably, yeah. It's a lot.
And
There's a
how
lot
many
of
times have
calls.
you been rejected?
More than I could ever count. More than I can ever count. But you just have to be thick-skinned a little bit with sales, because I've got quite a gently sort of. I always say to people, if you're going to do cold outreach, don't have a big epic database that you're trying to churn through and find your diamonds in the rough. What you really want is a wish list of ideal clients you really want to work with, and you want to work on cultivating relationships with them rather than looking for deals. It's a more strategic way of doing it nowadays. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that's changed is cold calling tends to be a lot more targeted now, and a lot more phone activities actually around follow-ups.
I mean, for a period of time, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, there was all the TPS and there was all of this.
Absolutely.
I'm not hearing as much about that anymore.
No. Well, do you remember when
GDPR and all?
Yeah. So the TPS, the telephone preference service, used to be something you could register on. And if people did cold call you and you were registered, you could report them and they would get a £5,000 fine just for phoning you.
Does it still exist?
It does still exist. It's just a lot harder to prove. And this is why some companies will use outsource companies who are outside of the UK. They don't tend to think that they're subject to UK law. I'm no expert on the TPS thing. I just tell people, if you're buying databases, make sure you screen the phone numbers against the telephone preference service to be safe.
Yeah, to be fair, I used to hear about it a lot, but I don't hear about it as much anymore. Salesy. Does that mean being slimy, talking about me? What does it mean, salesy?
Salesy usually is quite bullshy. It's usually a pitch rather than a conversation, and it's usually filled with features and benefits. We are programmed to realize how sales processes work. Features and benefits have their place, but if you use them at a very early stage, if you pick the wrong feature that they're not interested in and then you follow it up with a benefit, they'll see the pattern of feature followed by benefit equals there's probably a close coming, therefore be careful.
Which is selling too soon, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of salespeople are chasing their target, and they're too busy looking for their next deal rather than trying to find their next customer.
So what did you say, that it's conversation first, sales second?
Absolutely, yeah.
Even though the conversation is part of the sales.
Yeah. Well, I don't think sales really now is as much about selling. It's more about helping your customers to buy.
It's a Jeffrey Gittimerism, isn't it?
I've been saying it for years. So I don't know where it came from originally, but it's... Selling is hard because you need to pitch. Nobody likes to be sold to, but everybody loves to buy. And that's the bit where I remember my very first mentor. There's a guy called Phil M. Jones.
Yeah. We've had him.
So I remember him saying that the best salespeople earn the right to make a recommendation. Okay, earn the right to make a recommendation. And I was asked when I quoted this recently, like, well, how do you do that? And I suppose the only way I could really think of is that when you meet a prospect, they usually have two main questions, which is how much is it and how quickly can I have it? Because time and money are the things that they value most. So you do need to answer those questions, but really what you need to do is you need to teach them the other questions that are important that they should be asking that they don't know. Okay, and as you start to educate people and help them through the buying process, you start to build this sort of credibility and this authority, and they'll start to think that you know far more about buying this than they do, and therefore, if you're going to be honest and open with them, you'll get asked your advice for a recommendation.
So for some of the listeners, they might not have a sales team or a telemarketing team or whatever, SDRs they're called. You know, what's that? Sales Development Representative.
Yeah, absolutely.
BDE, Business Development Executive. BDM.
BDMs. You got managers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We're talking about the same thing here. This is direct sales.
Yep.
So for the people that haven't had anyone in that role in the business, should they have someone in that role in the business moving forward?
Absolutely. I think that you may not need a cold caller. You may not need somebody who's doing cold outreach, but you definitely need somebody who's going to do some follow-ups. They need to follow up on inquiries that come in through your website, the proposals that you're sending out to people. You need to have additional conversations.
Appointment setter, meeting setter, SDRs, BDAs, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
So pretty much every business needs one of them, or 10 of them?
I want to say yes, because of what I do. I'm the telephone assassin. Everybody should have somebody in the business who's happy to talk to prospects and clients.
And
okay. However, if your marketing is amazing and you've got enough inbound leads coming in, you don't need to do the proactive outreach. You need to concentrate on converting the inbound inquiries. In which case, that may not require using the telephone. You can do that digitally as well, or you can move people onto a video type call. I think people tend to prefer a virtual meeting as well.
It's quite a wise choice of words, isn't it, assassin? Because the connotations of that is exceptionally accurate. You choose your words wisely. And if your mentor was Phil M. Jones, he's the wordsmith, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. He talks about his magic words, right?
Yeah, magic words. So is that why you chose assassin?
It's not really. If I'm honest, when I first started, I was making calls for lots of different businesses, and they used to get various databases from various places where they shouldn't have got them, usually from a new employee who's brought it from their old one. And I always used to say, don't give me a database, give me a wish list. And then one of my clients who I was locked in a retainer with basically went, oh, this is brilliant. You're like my telephone assassin. And it kind of stuck, and I thought, oh, I quite like that. And then 2 weeks later, another client of mine referred to me as their telephone assassin. So when I told my original client, he went, I think you've got the name of your book, because he knew I was writing one. So that's kind of how it came about. But I was warned about using the word assassin in my company name. I was told that the Americans wouldn't like it. And
has it worked?
I've got a few American clients. I don't think it seems to have scared any of them off. It's the reason why most of my branding is pink, because according to the designer, it softens the aggression in the word assassin as part of the brand.
And so does your soothing voice as well. I mean, that softens there's not an aggressive bone in your body, is there?
No, absolutely. And that's, I think, the bit that tends to catch people a little bit off guard, because they hear telephone assassin and they think, oh, this is going to be like aggressive closing tactics. And they go, wow, like that's just really good manners and some emotional intelligence, really.
So what's best practice for an SDR or a telesales person? How many hours a day, if they're working full time, how many hours a day are they on the phone? How many dials a day? Is it still these kind of metrics that we're looking at?
It varies from company to company. I've seen companies who have minimum call times, so you have to be on the phone for 4+ hours every day.
We're using turbo dial, like auto dialing.
So the company I'm thinking of doesn't do that at all, but you are.
If I was doing it, I prefer headset, bam, just get me in the zone. Yeah, I'm on it.
So headsets are good because they give your arms free, you can articulate, so your voice sounds less stilted. Not all headsets are particularly loud, so sometimes you miss stuff, and that's the bit that I look at in busier contact centres when it's very noisy and people have headphones on that aren't really loud enough. Quite often, for example, the thing that annoys me, I'll answer the phone and go, hello, Anthony speaking. And they go, hi there, can I speak to Anthony Stears? And it's like, I've just told you it's Anthony speaking. Had you have been paying attention, you should have twigged that you've got through to the right person.
You don't say that to them, though, do you?
No, I don't. Okay. But it's one of those things that kind of instantly frustrates me. It's a case of, okay, so I know you're not listening. I know you're on an auto dialer because you weren't paying attention at the beginning. It does allow you to type notes as well, which notes are crucial for updating your CRM system. But the feedback that I've had from most people is one of the things they really don't appreciate on a sales call is the sound of typing, because they then think you're not paying attention. They don't think you're writing notes. They think you're on Facebook. It
feels really salesy.
It feels salesy, absolutely. So I would...
If someone's taking notes on you and saving it, it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you doing to me in my business? I'm not telling you anymore.
Yeah. Well, if you think somebody's in sales, you won't tell them what your biggest problems are because you know they're going to rub salt in the wounds, right? That's the whole thing of how sales works. They try and fix your problems by asking you about that problem and then asking how much that actually costs you. So you start to create a value of how much it is. And then if you can provide a solution that's less than the cost that it's costing you, then technically why wouldn't they buy it from you?
So the takeaway message is when you type in your CRM, do it lightly.
Absolutely.
In shorthand, so you're not doing it too much.
Absolutely. I normally just write stuff down and then I type up afterwards. So when you're asking about number of calls and auto dialers, if you're on an auto dialer system, you would have to make your notes as you go, because as soon as it's hung up, you'll get loaded up for the next one. And after 3-4 calls on the trot, they start to merge into each other. You won't be able to write notes. Give it half an hour and then write notes for all the calls you've just made, because this one will merge with that one.
You've made so many.
Yeah. So I always say to people, dials shows effort. That shows that you're trying and you're hustling. But I always say don't count your calls, just make calls that count. I don't care if you've dialed 100 times in a day. What I care about is how many people gave you permission to speak and you actually had a conversation with.
Is that the first number that you want to track? How many people give you permission to speak?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because that's your first magic number.
Absolutely.
And then the second magic number is...
Yeah, from the people who gave you permission to speak, i.e. you had a conversation with, how many people did you convince to have a test drive? How did you give them an easy next step? So that could be sending them a sample, inviting them for a visit. It could be setting up a discovery meeting and an appointment. It could be downloading a project plan. It could be samples of your products. Yeah, it's a variety of different things that you can do. So for me, if I get somebody inquire and go, you've been recommended, I'd love to talk to you about speaking at my event, I'd say, okay, well, yeah, let's chat about it. But look, here's a copy of my book. All right, I'd give them a copy of my book. I may even say, well, look, why don't I send you a copy of my book and you can tell me which chapter you think would be most useful for your team and I'll design a talk specifically around that for you. So I can give you something free and of value, give you a chance to sort of test my stuff out, and hopefully that kind of whets your appetite for me tailoring something.
Have you heard of a sales trainer called Jack Daly?
I have, yes.
Yeah, Hyper Sales, his book or something like
Yeah.
this. I watched him speak once at an event.
Yeah.
He was incredible.
Yeah.
And he said this statement, which was almost counterintuitive to loads of stuff that I'd heard about sales training before. And he says the best salespeople in the world, they make fewer calls.
Yeah.
And they have a higher average
Cool
sale.
time. Yeah, yeah. Oh, higher average sale as well, yeah.
So they have a higher average sale price.
Yep.
And they make fewer calls, which basically means this. They know exactly who to call, and they call them at the right time,
in the right way,
and get the maximum margin.
Yeah.
For the just incredibly leveraged, know who to call.
Yeah. And that was when I said to you about at the beginning about doing research. If I do my research, I'm going to know roughly when to speak to you. I'm going to know when you run your events. I'm going to know a bit more about your team. It means I can tailor what I'm going to say to you.
Be careful, folks. He could be stalking your business, and he knows exactly when to call you. They call him the assassin for a reason. All right, but I love that point. I mean, the first two KPIs are permission to speak and test drive.
Absolutely.
How many of them have you got?
Yeah.
What are some of the common mistakes that salespeople make on the phone that kill deals?
The first thing that they can do is read a script at the beginning or rattle off some kind of pitch.
Is the reason they've got to read the script because they don't know the script?
Yes. So there's two main reasons why scripts don't work. The first one is they don't learn them like an actor would, so you can tell that they're reading.
Like what you said earlier on, I can't remember what you said when you phoned did the fake call. It rolled off the tongue.
Yeah.
It was smooth. It was elegant.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it was scripted.
It wasn't scripted. I've just said it so many times that it now rolls off.
It originally was scripted, though.
No, I started to record some of my calls. Somebody was sort of saying, well, how have you got such a good strike rate? You talk to everybody. How are you getting them to listen? And I was like, well, here's my recordings. And we went through it. And it was like...
Found something that worked and repeated it.
Every time you double check that they actually want to talk, but you do it in a way that makes it easy for them to get out of it, which seems to make them relax. And once I realised that, it was like, okay, permission to speak is how you start your call off, for sure.
Say it again.
Permission to speak, easy.
No.
My permission to speak, I would usually say good morning or good afternoon and their first name, unless they're a doctor or a professor. Don't drop that title if they studied for it. But I'd normally say, for you, it would be good afternoon, James. My name is Anthony Stears. So I say my full name, but not my company. My name's Anthony Stears. I was just hoping to chat to you for a couple of minutes, but I'm guessing I probably caught you at a bad time. I just wondered if there's a better time to call you back. And then shut up.
Silence.
Then you go silent. And if you were cold calling, you phone 10 people, you'd probably get 7 where you've got gatekeepers and voicemails, right? Don't leave those messages for cold prospects. But of the 3 that answer, 2 out of 3 on an unlucky day will say, well, actually, Anthony, I'm about to go into a meeting or I'm just about to do something. Could you call me back at the end of the day or could you call me on Friday? Okay. And I'd say, yeah, no worries, still happy to call you Friday, is late morning, okay. And I would try and pin it down to a day and a time, but I would repeat the same process at 11 o'clock on Friday. Hey, James, you said to give you a call around this time, but I know you're a very busy man. Look, if now's not a good time, is there a better time to call you back? And the reason that I do that is that...
It's the same script, but just slightly modified.
Slightly modified, and... We all know that sales is a numbers game, right? We all know that you got to put the numbers in order to get some results. But it's not really, I don't think it's about overcoming objections and convincing people to buy. That's not what sales is about. I think it's more about capitalizing on the conversations people are ready to have. If you force a conversation with somebody who's not looking right now, you're going to get no's. You're going to get not interested, leave me alone, send me an email, deflected. You're trying to sell to me and I'm not ready to buy.
You know what? If you'd have phoned me up the second time and said that, I've got the feeling this guy's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I've got and even if I say, come in next week on Tuesday, I feel like now I owe you one.
Yeah,
There's an emotional bank account because you're so nice.
Yeah, I'm going to guilt you into giving me the time. And what will probably happen is on the 4th or 5th attempt, you'll end up saying something like, look, thanks, Anthony. So I know you've been trying to get hold of me. Look, I tell you what, I'm about to have a sandwich. I've got 5 minutes now. Go on, fire away. Right?
Yeah, and it's relaxing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that way I can capitalize on the conversation because I know you're ready to listen. Whereas if I phone you and you're distracted, the best I'm going to get is rattling off a pitch. And yeah, you're probably going to say, not looking right now, mate. Sorry.
Your book deserves to be published, and selfpublishing.com wants to help make it happen. You'll work one-to-one with an author strategist to write, publish, and market your book the right way. With more than 8,000 authors and 100,000 books in print, they know what works. Ready to bring your story to life? Visit selfpublishing.com/ActionCOACH right now.
Can we touch on these two things that you talked about as well? Voicemail. I dare say the listeners are going to be getting their sales teams and marketing teams to have a listen to this podcast as well now, which is great, by the way. Any advice for leaving voicemails?
Absolutely. Firstly, I only leave voicemails for people who either know who I am or are expecting my call. So if it's a totally cold...
So if they say call back at Friday at 11...
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I would leave you a voicemail at 11 o'clock on Friday if you didn't answer, but I'd probably phone you twice. I'd phone at 11 o'clock. I'd double dial. If you didn't answer at 11 o'clock, I'd probably phone at 3 minutes past and go, hey, James, I know we were due to speak today. Obviously, something's cropped up. I'll stick around on the Zoom link for another 5 minutes if you're around. But if you want, I'll tell you what, I'll move this until, and I might suggest another day and time. If that doesn't work for you, please let me know. So I might try and keep it in the diary that way.
And then send them an updated diary link.
Yeah, I just change. Well, I would just turn around and say, obviously, something's obviously important has cropped up. Totally understand that. Let's push this to Monday. I've got a gap in the afternoon. If that doesn't work for you, let me know what days work. And it's much easier to kind of keep it in the diary that way. But the reason I don't leave messages for people who don't know who I am is that if I leave a message for you and you don't know who I am and you don't call me back, if I phone again, you will start to form this sort of negative association with, so if somebody said to you, I've got the telephone assassin on the phone, and you go, hang on a second, he left me a voicemail last week, that guy. And then you think, well, I didn't call him back, so I don't think I'm interested. Therefore, let's block him, get him to send me an email. So by leaving you a voicemail, I might actually get you, it's a bit like sending too many emails, I might get you to start having this negative association with it. So, but if you're going to leave a voicemail, all you need to remember is do a TFR at the end of it, which stands for take final responsibility for the next time you're going to try. So if you'd inquired through my website, and I get these a lot where people kind of go, oh, you've been recommended. I'd like to find out a bit more about training and some costs. Could you send me some information? Okay. And I think, oh, you were so close. I've got a training section on my website. It's got all of my prices. You could have download programs. I can't tell you that because that makes you look like an idiot, right? So what I would do is I would phone you up and go, well, hey, James, it's Anthony Stears here, the telephone assassin. Thanks ever so much for your inquiry through my website. I'm more than happy to send you some information about training, but I would really love to find out a bit more about your team and what it is you're trying to achieve with the training. If you get a moment, please call me back on this number, and I will give them my mobile number. And then I would say, but don't worry, I'll make a note to give you a call tomorrow afternoon if I haven't heard back from you. That's my first message, okay? So that's my TFR. Don't worry, I'll call you tomorrow. So you now know I'm going to phone you if you don't call me back, right? I now think you can't be cross for me calling the next day because I've pre-warned you. My second message would go, hey, James, I don't know if you got my message yesterday, so I try and add a bit of concern as to whether or not you got my previous message. This is what I mean about wrapping it in customer service.
Concern.
Yeah? I'm slightly concerned perhaps you didn't get my message yesterday, so I just thought I would try you again. More than happy to send you information, but would love to have a chat about your team and what you're trying to achieve with the training. I'll send you a quick LinkedIn message now as well, but if you get a chance, please call me back on this number. But don't worry, I've made a note to give you another call on Friday if I haven't heard from you.
Take final responsibility.
Take final responsibility. So most people stop at 2 or 3 voicemails, but if you don't mind humouring me, let me fast forward to voicemail number 8. which most people don't get to. And the reason they don't is they say, well, I don't want to pester them. Well, as long as you wrap it in good manners and you tell them that you're going to keep trying and that you're concerned that perhaps they didn't get your previous message, then follow the 3 Ps. Be polite, persistent, and patient. As long as you follow that kind of routine. So voicemail number 8, if I was leaving you a message, right, would probably go, hey, James, it's Anthony Stears here, the telephone assassin chap. You probably don't even remember, but you inquired through my website nearly 2 months ago now. I've left you several voicemails. I've sent you a LinkedIn message and a couple of emails too. I'm guessing that perhaps you're probably not looking for training anymore. If that's the case, please do let me know and I'll take you off my database. But don't worry, if I haven't heard from you, I'll make a note to call you again in a couple of weeks' time. Okay? Or it might then go on to like a 2-weekly callback. Or if I've had enough by this point, my TFR might go, please let me know if you want me to take you off your database. But I tell you what, I won't phone you anymore, but I'm going to add you to my newsletter where you'll still receive tips from me and you'll have all my contact information should you decide to get back in touch. So I could then flip it onto an automated nudging process from there.
You could, and there's a bit of a takeaway clause in there, psychologically, you're taking something away, they feel like they've lost something, they've lost the opportunity.
Yeah.
Look, the TFR thing and the polite persistence, patience, genius. Love the voicemails. What about the gatekeepers? How do you deal with gatekeepers?
Gatekeepers, generally, I would say don't engage with them unless you have to. I've got a 3-step process that tends to work, which I call an over-familiar ask. So if I was phoning you and you didn't answer, the way I would start it off, I was like, oh, afternoon, is James there, please? Sorry, James Vincent. So I say your first name like you're my friend, and then I instantly correct myself like I've just realised I've called you at work. Okay. In about 75% of cases, people will put you through either because they weren't going to ask you any questions anyway, or they've assumed that we're friends and that I know you. Okay. If I start with that, what you'll usually find is if they're going to ask a question next, the first question they tend to ask is, and who can I say is calling? Okay. And what I do there is I overpronounce my surname like it's an important detail. I'll go, oh, yeah, sorry, it's Anthony Stears. That's Stears. Thank you. Okay. What I'm trying to suggest there is that you might know 5 different Anthonys. Tell him it's Anthony Stears. He'll know who it is. And for those that are into nuances in the language, you probably heard me do a thank you, down-tone thank you at the end. That's a polite way of being dismissive. It's suggesting that I've said enough, if that makes sense. So if you do that whole overpronouncing your surname, you typically find that now they go, oh, okay, hang on a second, I'll just see if they're free. But there is one final question that they might ask you, and this is what I call the premature elaboration trap, which is where they then say, and what is the call about? That's the thing you don't want to answer. If you tell them what you do, the best you can hope for is they're going to pass on a diluted version of your pitch. So usually if the gatekeeper then says, what's the call about? I'll say, oh, look, don't worry. It is important, but it's definitely not urgent. Look, when's a better time to call back? Okay. And it's my favourite line because what you typically hear is the gatekeeper will do one of 2 things. Okay. They'll either instantly admit that the person you're trying to get through to isn't available. So they'll instantly say, oh, hang on, don't hang up a second. Sorry, they're in a meeting at the moment. And they'll either say, can I help or can I take a message or something along those lines. But usually what happens is because it sounds like I'm about to hang up and walk away and they've just kind of got the impression that we could be friends. And then I've just said it's important but not urgent. As soon as I say that line, look, when's a better time to call back? They go, hold on a second, I'll just see if they're free. Because they don't really need the answer to that question of what the call's about. So that's probably my favourite little technique when it comes to getting past gatekeepers.
It's beautiful. Okay, so I asked you the question, mistakes that kill deals, and you said reading script, and then we had all that. Are there any other mistakes that kills deals?
Well, yeah, there's one other, but just on that script thing, the first issue that you have is people don't learn them like actors would, so it doesn't sound natural, okay? But the real problem with a script is that the person that you're phoning hasn't been sent their copy. So they're bound to say something that isn't on the script. And if you try and stick to the script, you'll distort the flow of the conversation, which will set off alarm bells that say something's going on here. So that's usually...
Have a script, but be prepared to adapt it to the conversation.
Well, you can have a bit of a script, but it's better to have a structure. If you've got a structure, it's much easier to allow it to go off organically in one direction, but know where you need to bring it back to. Whereas if it's got a script, you're too busy looking for your next set of words and you're thinking about what you're going to say next rather than listening. And that's the best way to engage people in a conversation is to listen to what they say and then respond. to what they've said, not just go off.
And
on
at
what
some
you want
point,
to talk
ask a
about.
question,
Oh yeah,
because
absolutely.
the person asking the question is the person in control. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it shows that I'm interested in you. It'll be everybody's favourite topic is themselves. So the more you know about them, the easier it is to do a bit of flattery. But the more I show an interest in you as well, the
Yeah.
more you realise I'm interested.
Yeah, and flatter them.
Yeah,
Make them feel special. Make them feel good.
But the thing where salespeople tend to go wrong, and I see this quite a lot, is when it comes to the middle part of the call. Some people refer to it as kind of perfecting your pitch. I tend to describe it more as establishing your credibility. I look at sharing success stories people can relate to. So that's around using case studies and references of existing customers and sharing that with potential customers. The thing that salespeople tend to get a bit wrong is they tend to name drop their biggest client, because they think that that's going to impress the person that they're speaking to. And sometimes it does, but usually it's quite short-lived. It impresses them for a couple of seconds. They go, oh, wow, you've worked for Microsoft. Wow, you've worked for this company. And then it intimidates them. Then they go, oh, so you're probably not interested in working with me. I've only got 5 people on my sales team. I've only got this much. And that's the bit where I think most salespeople go wrong, because it then comes across that you're bragging that you've got the biggest, we look after these people. So the line I always give people is the best way to perfect your pitch is to share a success story somebody can relate to. And if you underline the word relate, it's the most important word in that whole sentence. If I get a training inquiry, there's no point in me sharing what somebody said about me speaking or my coaching, right?
Common ground, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's finding the common ground to the person that you're with.
Yeah, and it takes out that awkward bit of the pitch that most people struggle with, which is the bit where you have to tell them how good you are. When you have to tell them how, if you're the one who's delivering the service as well, it's kind of feels really braggy and kind of arrogant to tell you how good I am. So it's much easier for me to go, well, I tell you what, here's another client who was in your industry or who also wanted to book appointments. Have a look what they said about working with me. Because they're going to believe far more what my clients say about me than what I say about me. And at least that way I can prove to them I've got a track record either dealing with their industry or giving people the outcomes that they want from the training, which is usually increasing conversion ratios, up in meetings, that kind of stuff.
Let's go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Follow-ups that close.
Mm-hmm.
The best closers on the phone that have done the follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
What are the traits in character type, in how they're behaving? And
they tend to be persistent but friendly. So they will keep phoning and they don't get bored of...
do they work on these traits? Did they learn these traits, or have they got them naturally?
I think it's something you have to work on to begin with. But as you get more confident in sales, you start to realize what works. Okay. And you know that enough of this activity will produce the results that I want. So hopefully it gets you a little bit more sort of thick-skinned with doing it consistently and getting the volumes right.
But the only way of getting to that stage is by doing it.
Absolutely, yeah. The best way to learn on the phone. So when I do my training, I don't really do any role plays with people, simply because you'll either go one way or the other with it. You'll either be very kind with me if we're doing a role play and it's very easy and therefore it's not worth it, or you'll be really mean and it'll be horrible and uncomfortable. So what I end up getting people to do is to do live calls and actually phone people.
And just listen in and be there with them.
Sometimes you can listen in, but you mentioned that my permission to speak seemed to roll off the tongue, right? I know other people who do it very differently. So I've got one guy in London. He's from East London. He thinks I'm posh. Okay, he says I speak really posh. I think he sounds like he works on a market. Okay, and he tried to use my permission to speak. That good morning, and his client went, "What's happened to you?" And he went, "Well, I'm doing some training." And his client went, "I don't think it's working." So he came back to me and he said, "Your permission to speak doesn't work." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? I know it works." And he went, "Well, I've just tried it, and my client, he told me what happens." And I went, "Well, you did it my way, not your way, didn't you?"
All right, mate.
Yeah.
All right, mate.
Yeah.
Is now a good time, or is there a better time to call you?
Well, he does it now in 6 words. He goes, "Hello, fella. Good time, bad time." That's how he gets his permission to speak, right? It's a bit too informal for me, but he likes it. It works for him. I work with people in the world of construction where actually the etiquette doesn't need to be quite as high. You can get away with that kind of a permission to speak. But what I get people to do is when you want to practice your permission to speak or a response to a question, phone yourself and leave yourself a voicemail. Okay, practice it. Phone yourself. And the first time you do it, you're going to get it wrong and you're going to crack up because you realise you're leaving yourself a voicemail. You feel like an idiot, okay? Second time, you'll probably mess your words up a little bit, but by the third and the fourth time, it will start to just roll off the tongue, okay? And once you get it perfect, then stop and listen back to the last voicemail. Okay, delete the others, but keep that voicemail on file. And once you've said it and you've practiced it and you've heard it back, it will start to program those words into your brain and it will start to then just flow and roll off the tongue rather than feeling scripted. So it's a practice makes perfect, but you don't have to do it in a live environment.
I love that. So phone yourself, leave yourself a voicemail and keep doing it until you feel like I've just nailed it and then go and listen to that.
Listen to it, then make some calls. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the persistent and friendly. Anything else about closing? You know, you get into the end of the call, we've got to close the next step.
Yeah.
A lot of people get nervous at this point, don't they?
Well, I think you kind of just hit the nail on the head there. What you need to close is the next step. Sometimes the deal is not the next step. Sometimes it's, okay, well, we've done the quotation now. Now we need to do the demo, or we need to invite you to here, or we need to do a site visit, or whatever it might be. The way you get people to move forwards and closer to buying usually is by offering them test drives. So this is where you do some kind of value for them, where they get to experience what you like to work with. So sometimes this is just by simply doing a quote, but sometimes it's a demo or a visit or something like that. But there's usually a sequence of test drives. So this morning I was with one of my clients is Guides for Brides. They do stuff in the wedding world, right? I do a lot of stuff with venues, okay? And the two main test drives that a bride and groom want when they're checking out a venue is they want a quote because they want to know how much it is, and they want to visit it because they want to have a look round, okay? What nobody actually knows is which one they want first, okay? Because some people, you'll say to them, oh, thanks for inquiring at our venue. Why don't you come for the tour and I'll show you around? And they'll instantly think, well, hang on a second. I need to know I can afford it. Can I have a quote first? Okay. Whereas other people will come in and you'll say, well, look, do you want me to send you some prices? And they'll say, well, I don't know if I like it yet. Let me come and view it and then you can give me a quote. So you've got to figure out what's the next step you want to take as a test drive to move forwards before making a decision. And test drives are just there for me to prove that I'm good at my job and to give you some value up front and basically whet your appetite so you want more.
Yeah, which is a big KPI, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose the closing of it is more focusing on the next step, but you can only really focus on closing the next step if you understand their timeframes. So at the very beginning of the call, when you're talking to them and you're saying, well, look, this is what I do, but I'm guessing you're not looking right now. And they go, well, actually, yeah, you're right. We haven't got any budget for another 3 or 4 months. Okay. You need to write down no budget for 4 months. Okay. That means you probably don't need to get back in touch or do quotes for at least 2 months. Okay. There's no point going, oh, okay, brilliant. Well, let me do your quote now. Let me give you a quote and because it's too early. You're not interested right now. So sometimes you have to bring it back a little bit. And sometimes you have to turn around to people and say, so how would you like to move forwards from here? Because some people want time to think about it. Some people go, well, this is good. You've answered all of my questions. Now I'm ready to go to the next stage. Let's have a meeting. Let's do whatever.
Is that a good question? So how would you like to move forward from here?
It can be a good question, but if they're not that interested and they're not very receptive to the conversation, that's probably a really rubbish thing to say because they'll go, well, yeah, you've not really answered my questions here, so I tell you what, leave it with me and I'll let you know if I'm interested. So all of a sudden, they've taken the ball back in there.
That's why I asked it, you know. I could feel like it might not get us business.
Yeah, it's probably not the best question to ask. People sort of say to me, oh, that we want to know closing tactics. Well, I don't really do aggressive closing tactics. I show people how to help their customers to buy. I'll show you how to build rapport so people like you enough to talk to you. I'll show you how to establish your credibility so that they can see you can be trusted and that they can see what your clients say about you. And then you offer them a no-brainer test drive that they're bound to bite your hand off for. You're kind of taking them through this journey of like, trust, do. And then from the do, you need to do a good job in order to win them over.
Got it.
In order to get to the close. So that's usually where the close comes in, is after you've done an exceptional test drive for somebody and demonstrated the value, then you can move forwards and say, hey, we've given you the quote now and you've come to visit. we've answered all your questions. You seem really happy. My guess is you're at a point now where we could put a deposit down, right? So you might go for an assumptive type close in that situation, but every company I work with, the conversations are tailored specifically to the types of people that you're speaking to and the outcome that you are driving them towards. So I can't really say this is how you close or this is a great line, because it varies from person to person. Sometimes it's appropriate, and some people use different sets of words that kind of mean the same thing. So for me, when I train people, I teach them the basics. I teach them a structure and the etiquette. And then once they've done that, that's the training. I can then coach them to develop their own personal style. And that's the bit where you'll know if a salesperson is good and confident, because they then all of a sudden have their own style. They're not trying to replicate other people in the team or follow scripts too closely.
Is AI doing this?
AI is fantastic for pulling together research before you phone somebody. So I think AI is brilliant there. I actually think one of the most useful applications, particularly for sales for AI, is getting an AI note taker. Something that will either dictate your calls and conversations, that will summarize
to upload to the CRM.
To upload to the CRM, because most salespeople, that's their downfall, is they don't update.
You could be on auto dial with a AI that just updates it for you.
You certainly can. Certainly can.
That could speed
you up.
But
the problem, it would speed you up, but the problem that you've kind of missed there is you need to read your notes before you dial. So if it's automatically dialing and I haven't got time to read the notes, then I can't use the ammunition they gave me last time, which means...
Can you not program an auto dialer for a 20-second break?
You can do, but what if there's 2 pages of notes from our previous conversation or a page of inquiry that they've sent in? You haven't then got time for it. So you can set it up so you can pause the dial straight away and read the notes, but that's where auto dialers really fall down, because you end up churning through contacts as opposed to connecting with customers.
Is there AI that does the phone calls?
So you mentioned TPS earlier on. Do you remember the PPI? Years ago. So it was that personal protection. I can't remember what it was. Basically, people could start claiming this stuff back, and we all used to get loads of cold calls from people saying, "Have you claimed your PPI, right?" And then we got so annoyed with it that they started to automate it. They got robots to start dialing, doing the first bit, and then it would connect you with a real human being. And that was because nobody would ever do a PPI call anymore, because everybody knew that it was the most hated type of cold call that you could get. Okay, so people have tried to automate these processes, and this is another reason why I say do wish list marketing, not database marketing. Is that we live in a digital world now. Okay, I understand that, and we should be using it. But if I cold called you really badly and I was rude to you and almost argued with you because you weren't interested, okay? Not being funny, but you're a pretty influential guy. If you wanted to have a moan about me online, all of a sudden I'm going to ruin my whole reputation, and you're going to start saying bad things about me, even though you're not my customer. So what I'm then going to be forced to do is create lots of positive marketing material to try and bury the negative stuff that you've said. And personally, I don't think that most companies can afford to take the risk of doing it badly. And that's where outsourcing to people in other countries who barely understand English, I know it's cheaper per hour, but if you're going to upset people along the way, it's counterproductive as far as I'm concerned. And the reason most people outsource these types of activities is because they don't know how to do it themselves, and that's why they outsource.
Well, they don't want to do it themselves, and it's cheaper.
Yeah, well, the reason they don't want to do it themselves is because they don't know how to do it themselves, so they think it's cheaper to get somebody else to do it.
Yeah, but if I own a business, I don't want to do it myself. I want to build a team.
Perfect. But the team that you want to do it, you want them to do it properly, right? You want to do it professionally and have the image of your company.
I think we've got to assume that all of the listeners to this, they want to do it properly.
Yeah. And once you know how to do it properly, even if you don't enjoy it, you then understand the process of how to do it properly, so you can then pass that on to somebody else. Whereas a lot of people who outsource don't even try and do it themselves. They just know they don't like it or want to do it or can't do it, and then usually they moan about the quality of the leads, and then so I then say, so did you tell them exactly how to do it? And they go, well, no, I told them I wanted 3 meetings a day. Okay, well, that's where you went wrong. You asked them for an outcome. You didn't give them a process. You can't complain about the results or their process if they're getting you the results that you want.
Wish list targeted
Yep.
process and training.
Yep.
Okay, I've got a few simple questions for you here.
Go on.
What's been the hardest lesson to learn on the phones?
Hardest lesson to learn. I suppose I'm quite a busy person, so I've got lots of stuff going on. There's plenty of irons in the fire. One of the harder learnings is being humble enough to know when you've got it wrong. And when you lose a deal, like people kind of don't follow up and go, oh, they haven't come back to us and we probably lost it. Well, I want to know why I lost it. Because it's the only way I'm going to learn, and I've got a chance of winning it next time, or there's a chance I can win it later on down the line. And I think that's a bit of a hard pill to swallow sometimes when you realise that you got it wrong or you misjudged it, and you
Nice.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the bit. But in feeling like that, it means you care and you're constantly trying to sharpen your axe and get better at it. I think once you become lazy and sloppy, you cut corners, and actually you need to lose deals every now and then to realise what you did wrong and help you pull your socks back up again and do it properly.
If there was one skill that the listeners, in an instant,
Yeah.
a magic in this,
Yeah.
could master
Yep.
to be incredible on the phone, one skill, instantly they will master. What's that one skill?
I know you want one, but I'm going to have to give you two here. Okay. The first skill is learning how to get permission to speak. If you do that, you don't end up having any bad phone calls. You don't force calls and get loads of no's. Okay. Once you perfect that, it's a joy picking up the phone.
Right.
But the thing that will make you the most money and have the biggest impact on your time and how much money you make from your sales is the TFR that has to happen, that taking final responsibility at the end of every conversation, every meeting, every email. It's all, every voicemail, you always take final responsibility for the next conversation, not just the next action. That's the thing that would definitely make
you
the
like
most money.
your little acronym.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
PTS, TFR.
Yeah.
Love. If you could go back and give your younger self some advice, you've probably heard these kind of questions before. What would the one piece of advice be?
For me personally, it would probably be embrace technology. I'm a bit of a slow adopter when it comes to tech.
Right.
If we get a new bit of tech in our house, my wife is the one that usually sets it up and stuff. I think I probably would have embraced using tech a bit more, and I would have told myself early on how important a CRM system is. That's the bit that
You can't do without it now.
well, you're just talking to so many people, you can't keep track of all your conversations. So I suppose that's probably the biggest one I would tell myself for sure.
What's the biggest lie that people believe about the phone?
Each no is one step closer to your next yes.
Wow, that's the biggest lie.
The biggest lie I hear. Well, it's like I say, it's a phrase that's designed to make you thick-skinned. The problem is you give somebody that phrase and a script, and you've basically got a bomb waiting to go off to upset somebody. And that's the problem is people go into sales and you're given this script and you're an auto dialer and 99 people will tell you to sod off, but don't worry, the 100th one will say yes and will pay you commission on it. And that's the bit that, particularly nowadays, people are far more aware of their emotional state, and going out looking for rejection is not anything anybody wants to do anymore, which is why that permission to speak thing tends to take that feeling of rejection out of it, because you phone with the assumption that they probably don't want to talk to you anyway, which manages your expectations. And then when they do say, go on then, let's talk, you relax, they relax, and you can have a proper conversation rather than that nervous, oh, are they going to let me do my pitch? Okay, quick, read it out type of thing.
If a studio in Hollywood phoned up and they wanted to make a movie about you and your life,
Yeah.
what would the movie title be?
I don't know. The curly-haired phone guy is what I get called quite a bit. I don't really know, if I'm honest with you. I suppose when it comes to movies, I remember when The Wolf of Wall Street came out. That was a really favourite movie of mine. And obviously you've got him, Balfour, on the phones, and people listen to that. And I remember getting 2 phone calls not long after the movie came out from two young chaps, separate companies, basically phoning up and saying, hey, I want to be a telephone terrorist. Right? That was the phrase that they had heard. And I just went, oh, okay, brilliant. You must have seen The Wolf of Wall Street. He said, yeah. I said, brilliant. Do you sell shares, stocks and shares and stuff? He said, no, we do this. I said, well, in which case I don't think it's going to work for you. And he went, what do you mean? And I said, well, there was a reason he went to prison. He used to lie to people on the phone. If you want to be a telephone terrorist, you've called the wrong person. If you want to be a bit more James Bond, then I can show you how it works. And that's what it was more about. It's not the lying to people to convince them to buy, so just kind of flipping the mentality of it around a little bit. So I think I managed to avoid your question there, but
permission to speak.
Yeah,
to James Bond.
To James Bond. There we go. It'd probably be called making every conversation count, I suppose, because that's ends up being the name of a few of my sort of keynotes and sessions that I run with people. But yeah, I don't know if that's a catchy enough title. I think I'd need who could play me? Let me think. Right, I get various things of you look like because of my curly hair. Anything from Leo Sayer to Sideshow Bob. various ones.
Well, when you come up with it, send it. Do you read personal development books?
I'll be honest with you, I don't read a huge amount. I tend to listen a lot more to podcasts. I'm getting into a bit of audiobooks and stuff at the moment. But if you've got any that you would recommend, I'm always looking to learn.
Too many. Depends on your area. Now, look, my favourite part of this we've never done a session like this before.
No.
About on the phone.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's a really good thing. I think, look, because appointment setters, SDRs, and that's the modern day language, BDEs, it's very common right now. There's a lot of people advertising for these kind of roles. But my favourite thing about this session is probably PTS and TFR.
Two really simple rules that you can apply. Like I say, one means you shouldn't get into any battle-y type of conversations with people, and the other one means you're increasing your chances of staying in control of the next step. But
you know what, though? Actually, over and above that, you are polite. You've got exceptional manners. And you have done for all of the time I've known you, to be honest. You're a very respectful human being. And you make me like you, actually. So...
And that's where that permission to speak thing, it's such a great show of respect for your time.
Yeah.
That you then go, oh, this is a nice guy.
It's how you say it. It's
right?
how you say it. Look, you're sucking me in again.
Yeah.
That's been my favourite part, actually, just appreciating your politeness and manners.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a seriously good person on the phone.
Yes.
Politeness and manners.
Absolutely.
And we can skill them with the PTS and the TFRs.
Yeah.
And the GTRs and the
PTEs.
and
BTEs,
okay, what's been your favourite part of the conversation?
I like being interviewed where I don't know what people are going to ask me. So when you asked about the personal development books, that instantly made me go, I don't read enough. So that you kind of made me think straight away, come on, why aren't you reading more? Why aren't you listening to more?
Took the challenge,
Well, yeah, I think in sales we get lazy when we get good. And the problem is that sometimes you need to sharpen your axe and you need to continue to develop.
I wanted to ask you a secondary question if you said yes, I did.
Yeah, of which book I'd recommend.
No.
If
you could only read one book every year for the rest of your life, what would the book be? But if you don't read, it's hard to answer that question.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know if I could pick one, and because I'm in sales and I'm dyslexic, so reading is not my top skill. I'm quite a slow reader, which is why I prefer to listen and watch stuff.
I mean the same thing though. Listening to the book.
I don't know. My favourite book that I've listened to recently it's kind of a personal development book, but it's not really. But it was Jimmy Carr's book, and it is billed as a bit of a self-development type thing. Humour, absolutely.
Humour works, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's they as a speaker, you kind of go, if they're laughing, they're listening. Okay, and if you can make people laugh, it means they think you understand them, which means you're kind of on a similar wavelength. You do have to be careful with it. You can't be too crude or disrespectful. You have to be sort of safe with the funny things that you say. You can't make fun of people directly. Usually it's self-deprecation if you're going to be funny with people. So I'll often take it on the chin and be the one that's be the one that we're laughing at rather than trying to laugh at you, if that makes sense. So
Jimmy Carr is exceptional, as are you, Anthony Stears. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.